Hi, welcome to the What Did You Think podcast, episode 31.
31.
Cameron said I had to be quiet because apparently it was speaking too loud because I'm just so excited to talk about this today.
Yeah.
You might be wondering a few things. Who is this?
Fans of the podcast would know that this is editor Cameron here. Cameron was unavailable, so I stepped in. I also stepped in to apologize for deleting the Spider-Verse episode entirely.
Yeah.
Making it unwatchable and unuploadable and
Non-existent.
Yeah. So that will only exist in the minds of the hosts.
Yeah.
It was a good episode, though.
Yeah, as a punishment, we kicked out Cameron, and we had the editor that is going to be on for this episode.
Yeah, as a punishment to me, the other host got kicked out, and I am here now.
Exactly. Yeah. Also, I don't know where my AirPods are, so I'm wearing the broken headset. So
awesome. Yeah. It's a return to form.
Return to form. Speaking of return to form, I've got nothing. Yeah, nothing
Speaking
really
of
interesting.
Broken headset. I thought you were trying to get into the show. I didn't know you had anything else to say. I was gonna.
No, I was like, there's pretty much no movie news.
We're definitely the place to go to for movie news. That's we talk 30 seconds at the start of every episode. Yo, this thing happened. Anyway, let's.
It's everyone's tuning in every Tuesday, just to like hear our 10 seconds of news that's happening.
Yeah.
I think we should just go to a full political podcast instead. Because Cameron and I are so knowledgeable of everything political that's going on.
How do you feel about Donald Trump's indictment? What do you think?
Barack Obama got reelected. What do you think about this? Let's talk about
a few years behind.
We just have no idea what's going on. So apparently, Russia's kind of crazy. But to all of our Russian listeners, that was just a joke.
Okay.
Anyways,
yeah, Putin wants to be on the podcast.
We got Putin just tuning in from Zoom.
Yeah. Should we talk about Barry?
We should. Speaking of politics, Barry has Barry. You've heard of it. I've heard of it. There's so many of them. Strawberries, blueberries, pineapple berries.
The act of digging a hole, placing something in it, and then putting the dirt back in the hole. That's also another berry.
Yeah. Also Barry B. Benson, arguably the most popular berry. Yeah, there's a lot of them, but we're talking about Barry Berkman, or from the show. Yeah. So Barry, Cameron, you got me into this show actually. So why don't you explain how you found it?
So I'm curious. I was watching this YouTuber called Drew Gooden. He's a great friend of mine, and at least he will be once he comes on the podcast.
Right.
And he was talking about how he likes the show called Barry. I was like, okay. And then later I got HBO Max, and then I saw that Barry was on it, and I was like, well, I like his YouTube videos, so if he likes it, I'll probably like it, because obviously I'm a fan of his sense of humor. Mm-hmm. So I watched it. It was incredible. And then I spread it like a virus amongst my entire friend group. And now my dad, my brother, Ben, his brother, Ben's wife, Riley, and now I'm getting other people into it as well. Just the whole guys, all the boys, the squad has been verified.
Funny how you say like you spread it like a virus. I think Barry is the #1 show I've recommended to people that have like that that the people I've recommended it just don't watch it. I remember when because when you first told me about it, it was only the first two seasons that were out, and it was about a year until season three came out from when I watched it. Because I watched it, I want to say after Invincible. I think that's the time frame. I'm trying to remember when you told me about it, but either way, I watched it, fell in love with it immediately. It's super hard not to fall in love with. It's a really great like idea for a show.
Yeah,
And it's just, especially these first two seasons are just legitimately so funny and so well written too. And I remember going because I used to work at Outback, and I was like telling all of my coworkers and everything. I was like, guys, you gotta watch this show. Have you heard of Barry? Like, I was giving people my HBO Max login and stuff so they could watch it, and not one person watched an episode. The only person that did was my mom and dad. I made them watch the first episode with me, and they made us turn it off. So, because they did not like it, they were not happy with it. So, um, yeah, that was unfortunate. But so yeah, my mom is starting to get into it, and part of me regrets it, and I think we'll get into that a bit later. But I think Cameron, since this is like your little baby, you found this, um,
sure.
you can go ahead and kind of like intro it.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
So Barry was created by Bill Hader, and Alec Berg, and it is starring Bill Hader, Stephen Root, Sarah Goldberg, and Anthony Carrigan and Henry Winkler. Um, so basically, just to give I'm not going to summarize every single season because there's a lot, but basically, brief premise: Barry is a hitman, and he doesn't like the hitman life. He wants to get out of it, and on one of his hits, he tails his target into an acting class and falls in love with acting. And so he wants to quit being a hitman to become an actor. That's basically the premise of the show.
Hmm.
And what this shows, what this show, its biggest strength is, in my opinion, is its ability to blend comedy and like actual serious things, like dramatic
Drama.
scenes and comedy at the same time. It's not like some things where they struggle to find a balance, or it's all one thing or all another. It's very similar but different to Succession in a way, where it can be serious and funny at the same time.
Hmm.
It's just with different forms of serious.
Right. And I would agree that it does a really good job at blending up until season three.
Yes.
I think season three is vastly different, like has a different feel. And as a result, like to me is my least favorite season. And because here's the thing. I don't know if it's bad necessarily, but I just know I do not like it as much as one and two. But one and two are so perfect that it's like such a high pedestal that anything lower than that is going to just be like a failure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, one
So,
and two are truly fantastic. And one thing that Barry does a lot, and they really did with this season, which we'll talk about later, they Barry takes risks. And so even though the risks don't always pan out, which I agree with Ben, even though it was in my top 5 of the year, Barry season 3 is still my least favorite season. It was a huge risk to go from a comedy to season 3 is there's funny moments, but it's really not a comedy at all.
I mean, it starts off. I guess we can go ahead and let's say our quick thoughts before we get into our spoilers. Um,
Sure.
for the whole show. Um, I think season four, without talking about it, is very good up until a certain point, and then I could have it or not, take it or leave it. To say my quick things about season four, or and just the show in general. I absolutely love it. Season three takes a dip that I'm not the biggest fan of, but still has some like really great moments. And if you can take it for what it is, it's still pretty good. And for season four, for the first half, feels like it's a return to its like roots and feels like really good. And then there's a twist that happens that I'm not the biggest fan of and kind of took me out for probably the rest of the show. What
Awesome.
about you?
So I would say that seasons 1 and 2 are really incredible, which uh I there's really like It's some of the best TV out there, in my opinion. And then season 3 does take that risk, makes that change. That while it doesn't, I wouldn't say I don't think it ruined it for you either, but it doesn't take it down as much for me because I think it's necessary because it would have been very easy for the show to try to stay in the same format, but due to some decisions that people makes that wouldn't really fit. So
Mm,
I think even though it still makes it my least favorite season, it's important and it's necessary that it goes in that direction. And then I'm glad that season 4 does return to form a little bit. And I'm not upset with uh the thing that happens in season 4. So I guess we'll have a conversation about why it worked for one of us and why it didn't work for the other one. But
right.
that I recommend the show to anybody who hears the premise and is interested in it.
Right. I mean, even if you're going to stop watching after season 2, why? That's the question. But I mean, it's still like a fantastic show. To where the first 2 seasons I'm putting up there with like Breaking Bad and those shows where like those 2 seasons are so good and the writing is like I just love it when a show comes full circle and seasons 1 and 2 do that perfectly. And it's like so good and it just rewards you like on just watching it over and over again. And it's easy to watch too. 30-minute episodes, 8 episode seasons, like that's
Yeah.
pretty ideal.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's all in all, I think yeah, like you could technically watch it in a day, like technically, but I don't know if that's healthy, but yeah, and I think you could go the full 4 seasons. But let's jump into it a little bit.
yeah, let's take a dive into these spoilers.
Yeah. I don't
Um,
think there's any time for a tangent. It's been like 2 seconds. Like you've known that this is coming, so that we don't have.
right.
It's all right. It's all
Um,
right.
yeah. So I guess um with season 3, because it kind of does like really set up season 4 for what it is. Um, the ending when Barry Berkman gets arrested and outplayed is so amazing and so great. It was such a good episode, and um it's like build up was so good of what's going to happen because the whole show does a great job at like what is going to happen. Is Barry going to kill this person? At the end of the day, I'm wondering that multiple times about multiple characters all the time on is this person really going to die or is this person really going to kill somebody?
Yeah.
And I think when the season ends and all the police and SWAT are just surrounding Barry, I think that's such a good moment and like got me so excited and confused and like what for season 4.
Um, Yeah, I don't want to recap the whole show, but just to kind of place the context here for this 4th season. Uh Barry and his girlfriend and stuff, they kind of made their mark in the entertainment industry. So they want to the focus shifts from becoming an actor to just basically it's entirely 100% now about how Barry wants to stop killing people. And he is battling with how much responsibility he can take and how to stop being this person and when he keeps getting thrown back into it and all that stuff. Uh and yeah, like Ben said, it ends with him going to jail. So uh I think we've set it up good.
Yeah, let's get
Ben, you
into
wanna
season
you
4.
wanna you wanna start the conversation off? We're not
Sure.
gonna go episode by episode like we normally do for TV shows. I think we're gonna go all right, so okay, here's the spoiler, the big twist that me and Ben disagree on. The Um, halfway through the season, there's an 8-year time jump. So let's call this BC and AD. Before C stands for time jump, and then after D stands for time jump. So BC and AD. So why don't you talk about Barry season 4 BC a little bit?
Okay. So season 4 BC from like the get-go is you can just tell it's lighthearted, but not even lighthearted. You can just tell it's more comedic. Like there's a lot more jokes going on. I'm trying to remember exactly because Barry's in prison, and I think just with Barry being in prison and Fuchs also being in prison is such a good like you honestly because you spend the whole show hating Fuchs And then
Yeah.
finally, when they get together, they're on such even playing field that it's like, oh, I kind of miss these two together because they're like watching TV or something together. They're like talking about whatever, joking about whatever. And it immediately becomes like, oh, it's so funny. It's so sweet. And then, it goes to Crystal Ball because the show's got to say, like, okay, here are your characters again. This is where they are and what they're going to do or what they're going to plan to do. Because what I love about the first episode is that everyone, if they just did nothing, everyone would be fine. Every single character. Like you have um basically Henry Winkler basically Henry Winkler's character, Kusanao, is like he's since he helped get Barry arrested because season 3 involved like Barry kidnapping Kusanao like all the time. But basically, if Kusnau wanted to, he can make a lot of money and become pretty popular by talking to the press about this story. But everyone knows Kusnau, and we all know Kusnau is like this theatrical guy, literally. Where like he will, of course, like stretch the truth and everything. And what does he do? He ends up talking to the press or whatever, and is because it could hurt the case against Janice. And Fuchs had a plan with the FBI to like if he gets dirt on Barry, then Fuchs could get out. And then Barry made a deal with the FBI that if he gets dirt on like NoHo Hank and all the like their like drug cartel and their operation, then he'll get out with Fuchs. Or I think honestly, no, it was not Fuchs, was it? Sally?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it was Sally.
Yeah. Well,
He said him
Sally, at the end of last season, Sally moved across the country to
she
get
went
away from
back to
Barry.
Joplin.
Yeah. And then Barry keeps trying to get back with Sally. And so he keeps talking about like if he escapes, he's gonna meet back up with Sally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. And then of course, Fuchs thinks that Barry's gonna like backstab him or whatever and organize like people to beat him up. NoHo Hank because Fuchs calls NoHo Hank. He's like, hey, Barry's trying to get dirt on you. So NoHo Hank finds out and they're all gonna send people to kill Barry. It's setting up this like perfect like fight already that Barry's gonna have to just like has everybody on his side, where it's gonna be Barry against the police, Barry against the like cartel, and Barry against Fuchs. And that is like kind of what the whole show has been already. But it seems like it's just like all led up. It's gonna be this whole big fight. And then like just completely does not become that and is like a 180 on everything we think is going to happen. Uh and I will say because since we're not going episode by episode, we meet for only one time in the whole show. We meet Sarah Goldberg's character Sally. We meet her parents, and her mom is somehow so much worse of a villain. Like she's so mean and terrible. Like she's worse than season 1 Sally, in my opinion. I mean, is she? You think she
I
is?
mean, it is weird. Like the parents are very un they don't pay attention to Sally at all. They're very selfish. Now, in
Yeah,
a show with so many terrible people, I struggle calling them the worst part of it, but in Sally's life at that point,
that's
probably
true.
the worst part.
She needed people to be in her corner, and
Yeah.
like her mom is not it. Her mom does not pass the vibe check, as we say.
Yeah, like she basically they find out that her ex-boyfriend is a serial killer and they blame her for it, which
Yeah,
is crazy.
that's like terrible. It's like obviously okay, so throughout the show they have like definitely these like medians of like stuff that happens today, which I can appreciate because it's done cleverly and not in a sense to just like shove down your throat. Like, get it? This is happening today, guys. Uh, like in the end of the show, Barry go like literally in the last episode, just Barry buys like so many like guns and is just walking through the toy aisle of a kid's section of the store and just like
Yeah.
walks right out and like everyone's just acting like it's normal. Um, but no, I mean I do enjoy the like parallels that the show does have. There's not a lot, but there are there. Uh, and I honestly think. Oh, so since I'm all out of order, I do want to ask, who's your favorite character this season?
That's an interesting question because all the previous seasons, my favorite character was Hank. but I think I don't really have a favorite character this season.
Really.
Yeah,
My favorite is Fuchs this season.
yeah, he's
I
he's
I
good.
I think
This
season 4 Fuchs is like the best ever.
it's best Fuchs, I think.
And I think how they ended up finishing his character is so good too. I think it's like better than what I was thinking was going to happen. And I think it was so good for I mean, Fuchs is a hilarious character also in this season. Like he cracks me up. I will say I wish we got more of like his story because we didn't really.
Yeah, we
And I was
didn't.
expecting I was ex- we did not,
No, I said we did
Cameron.
not. I was agreeing with you.
Oh, and I guess that's my only complaint because I do think Fuchs and the whole Barry thing is such an interesting aspect of the story and how well and how they mesh. And instead of just being told that, like, oh, Fuchs knew Barry's dad and that's how they met, they basically just showed that to us. And I was like, okay, but why? And I wanted to know, but why? And they never showed us why, they just showed us how. And I was wanting to know, like, what got Fuchs into this line of work and all this stuff. And maybe, that's too much to ask, but I feel like for one of your leads, you really need to flesh out the arguably main antagonist of the whole show, which is Fuchs. But
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong here.
No, I
Do
get
you
that. I
agree?
get that. I think it when you're watching the show, it feels like they're setting up some kind of like explanation or reveal from the past. But by the end, it doesn't happen, and I can understand not being fulfilled because it does feel like they're setting something up. But at the same time, I also feel like we get enough information for the plot beats to work out.
Right. And I'm
It's
not
just
saying like it
it's
would just
just a
be like
weird.
added stuff. It,
No,
would- it would
I
just be
get what
more
you mean.
substance, which I would like.
When they talk about his past so cryptically, it feels like they want you to be excited for what's going to be explained, and then they never do.
That's well, because like think of it in season 1 when he's like walking around in the hotel room with his shirt off and he's got like bruises all over his body. And I'm like, oh, this guy's got story. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's just not explained. So I don't know. I'm hoping for a Fuke spin-off show. No, it's the show's called Root. They just
Yeah.
canonically change his name. Anyways, um, I don't know. Anyways, so I think Fuchs is amazing, and I actually think Noho Hank is not that good in this season too. I think like he becomes more of a villain in this season because mainly he's always been a villain, but he's never been like an act like you know what I mean. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
He's never been antagonistic.
Right. And this season, he took a step. He took like sat down in the driver's seat of being the big bad guy, and I didn't like it. I don't know, and I think it just could be because like I had nostalgia for seasons 1 through 3 NoHo Hank, where I really enjoyed him, and to see him actually become a bad guy made me not like it. I don't know. I was just
No,
sad.
yeah. I get that. I my biggest problem with Hank is how I feel like his story doesn't have a satisfying conclusion.
Oh yeah.
But I do like Hank's parallels with Barry in this season because he kind
Hmm.
of, which
They
we can get
become the
into that
same.
more in like the second half. But
Yeah, yeah, we are still in BC part, I guess.
yeah,
My bad. So BC Barry, season 4. Um, it's pretty much like beat for beat what seasons 1 and 2 were. I mean, in my opinion, I think all the jokes are hitting so well. I'm cracking up at everything. Like, it's so good, and like it got me excited for after Succession to continue to watch Barry. Um, and honestly, all I have to say about for BC is that like I really enjoyed it. I think the writing was pretty much, I mean, the same. Like they didn't have time to close anything, so I really can't like say why. But the when it's like one of the cartel guys that sneaks into the prison and like it is just this close up of this guy's face
yeah,
is somehow one of the most intense parts of the whole show. And
I got
like
jump scared by Fred Armisen, dude.
like it was so intense and I did not know what was going to happen and just got me so excited for next episode. And unfortunately that next episode uh was that the episode right before or didn't they have one episode without Barry? No, they had one episode without Barry that was showing.
Yeah, they had an episode after like without Barry, but then in like the last 30 seconds, he shows up in Sally's house and
Yeah.
that's when the time skip happens.
Yeah, because it was Sally takes on this client, and I thought they were gonna do something with her. They didn't really, but Sally takes on this client to get back to acting, and since Sally's already tarnished her reputation of being this like jerk to one of her friends or workers or whatever, no one wants to hire her, and they know her as like this like rude nickname. And basically, when she gets home of like basically upsetting herself, then Barry shows up, and that's when we get the whole like 8 years later thing at the end,
Yeah,
or no,
yeah.
yeah.
So you say that the her client doesn't go anywhere. I think that every character in this show has a recurring theme of uh they are given an opportunity to get the life that they want, but it's not the way they want it, right?
Mm.
And so they turn it down. And that is like every character has that. And so it's all of them, and that that's what Barry's been going through the whole show. But in this season, every single character has a way they want their life to be. They're presented with a form of that, but it's not in their way of doing it, so they don't choose it.
Yeah. And
And
didn't they say it was a Greta Gerwig superhero film that was like directing or something
no,
like
it
that?
was the
Who
woman
was
who
it?
directed Coda.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
it was. That's so funny.
That seemed like a very directed diss to. I know it was just in general, a lot of
Yeah.
indie directors get picked up for superhero movies, but for some reason I felt like they were specifically like aiming that at Chloe Zhao
Yeah, oh definitely, definitely.
for
That's so
Eternals.
funny. Well, no, it is because it's like she won Best Picture, Coda won Best Picture, and then just immediately tanked on Eternals.
Yeah.
No, I
She's
also we have
a weird person to just randomly dunk on.
we also have Guillermo del Toro is in this episode, or
He
in
is?
in the BC. Yeah, he's the owner of the podcast that Hank and Cristobal are listening to, because they like have a podcast about like weapons and stuff, and they hire one of the guys from the podcast to like so that like they can talk to them, or whatever, to like ask them about weapons and stuff. Did you not know that?
I guess I didn't notice. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
Guillermo del Toro is in the episode, and he just plays one of the like Chechen like gangsters or whatever that owns a podcast.
That's hilarious.
That could be us one day.
That could be us.
We could be Guillermo del Toro. But no. I've said what I want to say about BC.
His character's name is El Toro.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I think we've talked a good amount about BC. I'll kind of quickly say what I'm thinking, which is that this half of the season is definitely, I think, even on purpose, very much like seasons 1 and 2. After the departure that season 3 was,
Hmm.
they bring us back to seasons 1 and 2, and I think they do that to remind you, and then that's when the twist happens, so it hits even harder.
Right.
Um,
Well,
and I think that it sets up an interesting season. And so I don't know it, because when you're watching it before the twist happens, before you know the twist, it has a different context than when after the twist happens.
right.
And so it's weird to look at it critically in that lens when there's two different
Yeah.
contexts to analyze it through.
I don't know. I mean, that was before crap, and now it's after doo doo.
All right, well, uh, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Anno Domini.
So,
Let's get
eight.
right into the news.
That's a deep cut. Is he still doing stuff?
Oh,
He
I mean,
announced that he was going
Killer
to
Keemstar.
retire. Yeah, he announced he was going to retire.
What else has Keemstar even done?
Um, I don't know.
The last drama alert video was 1 month ago.
Hmm.
What's not even close? The last drama alert was 5 months ago.
Yeah, I don't know. He said he was going to retire. I don't remember when he said he was going to when he said he would retire, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, hope he's
Anyway,
having a good time.
um, 8-year time jump. So I think it works You don't.
I don't.
Let's share our opinions and then let the viewers decide what they think about it.
Okay.
But and mostly they would decide by watching it, but
Right.
yeah.
First things first, season one, early in the show, I don't know exactly when. There's multiple times where Barry envisions his perfect life, and we get to see a scene or two of his kids teleporting to school, or John Hamm taking a crap in his bathroom. To him, or like him and Sally grocery shopping, and they're choosing soups. It's like, uh, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's his perfect life that he envisions that he wants to happen, and so when we get this little at the end of the BC episode, we see a house in the middle of nowhere, and we see like a kids fighting or whatever or something like that, and we see old fat Barry, and we see this kid, and we find out this is Barry's son named John through them talking or whatever. When I first saw this, I immediately thought that this is one of those instances where Barry is just envisioning a perfect life. And it wasn't. It was just like from the next episode, I was like, okay, this is legit. This is what we have now. And not only did it come abruptly, which I'm not upset with because, it's the final season. I'm expecting things to happen like this. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
like anything can happen. But I think just like where we were at in the story, I just don't think it worked too well. I don't know. Like, to me, this is something you do at the end of the season, not in the middle of a season, because we have the whole like climactic part of No Hank just getting Cristobal killed. We also have like Barry meeting Sally in her home or whatever. Like, it is there, and Fuchs getting beat up by the prison by the police. So, and Kusanao, what did I don't know.
He
He
uh
did
he just he was in hiding because he knows that Barry's trying to kill
no
him.
no 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 no. Kusanao went back to the cabin and ended up shooting his son.
Right. He was in hiding. Oh
Oh, I
yeah,
see what you're
yeah, because
yeah.
yeah.
Because he thought Barry was coming to look for him. So he shot his son. And then we have this whole 8 years later. Whatever. I To me it just didn't work because I was caught up in the story that I already had, that I wasn't really wanting to give it up and go get something new. So I had to deal with it. And I will say it got better, I will say. But it took me a while to get used to, because John is not fleshed out at all. John has no character really. He's living a lie. Literally his whole life is a lie. His mom wears a wig. Sally, I felt like they kind of ruined her character a bit, because like I was so into like how terrible she was in season 1, and like her getting better or whatever with the whole show, and her finally getting rid of Barry and dumping him in season 3, just to like kind of fall back to her roots. I don't want to say roots, that's terrible, because she's in a worse place than she began before she even met Barry. But I don't know. And she's obviously like still haunted by her killing that guy. And I guess you could look at it as like she views herself the same as Barry. Um I think it's more of a say on like how abuse works in relationships, where especially in season 2, a whole focal point of season 2 is Sally's play that she's writing about her ex-husband Sam, and how at the end of each time she would get hit and stuff, she would still always forgive him and be with him because she didn't know what else to do. And um basically, like, she made this fake persona of season 3 of her, like, in the end of season 2, of like talking back to Sam and like kicking him out of her life, when in reality she's living this lie with Barry. So I enjoy that parallel. Uh but I just felt like her character wasn't done justice at all, really, even in the final. But yeah, I guess to me that's why I didn't like it the most. I enjoyed what I already had, and I don't know.
Yeah. No. So when the time jump initially happens and the next episode like confirms this is real, it's not a dream. I was on board with you. I really did not think that it was an appropriate time to jump forward, and I thought there was still so much more to look at. So I went doing some research, and I found a interview that Bill Hader did after the episode came out about why he decided to do that. And I think looking at it from his perspective kind of changed my opinion of it. Um, I was still wary about it. I was still thinking like, okay, this could go bad. But hearing his thought process behind it, um, kind of helped me contextualize it. So he said that he actually did start writing the second half of the season as normal, where it picked up from that point, and then they were just doing all in the same, present day thing. And he said that it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like it didn't feel interesting enough for a conclusion. And so he thought, what if we take this interesting point that we have our characters in, our midpoint, and then we just let it sit and we let everything that's going on kind of develop a little bit, and where would the characters be at that point? And so where everybody is in that episode is important, and I agree. uh I think that he made the right call. So Sally, she is beating herself up for killing somebody, but she doesn't want to quit acting entirely. So when she goes to work, she puts on a persona. But it's like she is letting herself live a worse life because she feels like she deserves it, even though she could really leave whenever.
Mhm.
Barry, I think, is the most interesting character after this change, because you see how being removed from the situation and having time to kind of dwell on it himself, he's reacted to it and taking up a religion as another way to try to find redemption, but not taking it up because he necessarily believes in it, but taking it up just because it seems like a quick and easy way to remove the guilt of what he's
Right.
done. And then like Fuchs letting the legend of the Raven take over him and become the Raven, like he becomes what he was pretending to be, kind of thing. And then Hank, we leave Hank in a really interesting position where he kills Crystal Ball because of Crystal Ball's taking the business in a direction he doesn't want it to take to. And then we fast forward 8 years, and Hank has done the business. Like he did the Crystal Ball business that Crystal Ball wanted. And so uh I think it is really interesting. And if this was any other show, I don't think it could have been pulled off well. But I think Bill Hader is really good at what he does, and it does work for me.
Yeah. I also, you saying that, I do enjoy like I think AD, there are just some episodes that aren't as like good as the whole show though, and that's why it's like, since it didn't start off as strong as season 4 BC did, I think like it took a big drop in quality from, like, I don't know, because one of my favorite episodes is when Barry is going to go kill Fuchs because he finds out Fuchs is probably going to be making a movie and whatever. And he's listening to
Fuchs or
these,
Cusino?
yeah, Cusino, sorry. He's listening to all of these religious pastors on on their podcasts about killing or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, killing is absolutely not bad. And then Bill Burr, as a pastor, he's like, so today we're gonna be talking about killing. Killing's pretty fine. You got to do it sometimes or whatever. And then he's like, great. And then like pauses it and goes,
Bingo.
uh, yeah, that's what he says, bingo. And he's like outside the house, like with his gun loaded, ready to go, which is so funny. Um, and then you could say what you what was it? The episode when the guy sneaks in the house, I also felt was so weird and out of place.
Yeah.
Like, I liked it a lot, but they never said if that was like real or not. Which, I mean, to be fair, a lot of the show you could question on if this is real or not. But
Especially this season.
especially the season, and with that whole scene of someone sneaking in the house, like, and driving through it, I think it's like, I don't know, like, to me, this has the season has the most open-ended stuff and unanswered stuff, and it's also the last season. Like, I don't know, that's why it just doesn't work for me. That well. I don't
Yeah.
know, but I will say I love Fuchs in this. He's my favorite character in this whole season. Um, and I also think that the finale was pretty anticlimactic.
Yeah. Okay. So
Sarah's shaking her head yes with me on this also.
so the finale is definitely gonna be polarizing. I think that you're either gonna like it or you're not. Um, so I think that's where a good conversation could be. So let's just jump straight to that.
Okay.
So the finale of Barry is he realizes after a big okay, everything has been set up. There's like the gang, like Hank's gang and Fuchs' gang are about to have a war, and Barry buys like 1,000 guns, and he goes to join in and like fight them and stuff. And then Fuchs and Hank have a conversation. Oh, and Sally has been taken hostage. Sally and John have been taken hostage by Hank, and so everyone has finally come together to have a big final, huge shootout for for redemption and glory and family and Dom Toretto, and everything is all there together. And then Fuchs and Hank have a conversation. There's like a 40-second shootout, which is shot really well. And then that
It's
kind
not
of,
even that long.
yeah, it's
It's like 10
anticlimactic.
second, 10 seconds.
It's like 10, 15 seconds. Barry's
And
not
it's just
even there
because
for it.
a grenade just goes off and kills like everybody.
Yeah, Barry's not even there for it.
Literally,
Uh,
I looked down at my phone because I got a text. And as soon as I look back up, everyone's dead.
did you
I'm
ever go
like,
back and rewatch it?
no, never. I was just
You
like,
should. It does look really cool, but it's short, and I think that's part of the point.
yeah,
So I like and don't like it. I think subverting the expectations of the show is something that this show has done a bunch anyway, but there's like this a common theme of the show is like the depiction of violence in media. And so
right.
if it were to have that common theme throughout and then end with a big
Shootout.
Marvel
It,
third
it,
act fight.
it's like, okay, spoilers for The Last of Us 2. Uh, I think this does it better than Last of Us 2 as far as like being anti-violence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that like I understand they were going for that, but also my biggest complaint is not with um like everyone dying immediately. I could care less if there was a fight scene or not. I would love there to have been one because they've had great fight scenes before, and
Hmm.
why not have one this time? But my biggest complaint is honestly how the show ends. Uh with I don't know.
Right.
But
So the fight scene happens. Barry shows up afterwards. Fuchs delivers his family to Barry.
good
Um,
moment. I
that's
like
a
that
good
moment a
moment.
lot.
That it's kind of like Fuchs realizing, like, when I think Fuchs sees in Barry's kid what he used to see in Barry is like he's kind of taking him up as a father figure or whatever.
Hmm.
And he's like, all right, I think enough has changed now to where I should just like we should go our own ways, kind of thing. Fuchs finally lets go of Barry. Um, and then they like that night, Barry and Sally are talking, and Barry realizes, okay, he needs to do what he should have done in season one. Season one, he should have turned himself in, and because that's been the thing. This whole show, Barry's fighting to have a normal life away from killing, and that has been possible the entire time if he turned himself in. That's all he had to do. And he just that's not the way he wanted to get his normal life, and so he keeps killing people more and more and more and more and more. He thinks you know, starting now, this is when I stop killing people. And it just he never gets to that point because he doesn't do what is the right thing. He doesn't take responsibility. And now Kusanov is under threat of getting a life sentence for the crimes Barry did. And so he realizes, I need to turn myself in, and that will fix all these problems. And so he goes to Kusanov's house. He goes to tell him, I'm turning myself in, and instead Kusanov shoots him. And
Yeah.
then it cuts to black, kind of. And then we fast forward a few more years. Sally is now an acting coach like Kusanov was, and the movie that was going to get made about Barry's life gets made. Only this time, Barry's the hero and Kusanov is the villain pulling the strings the whole time. And pretty much the opposite of the truth is portrayed, and Barry is
Mhm.
now a hero in the public consciousness. So, yes, I didn't even know how to feel about it when it first ended.
My thing is, it's funny, but I don't think it works. Uh, I mean, I was wanting a good ending, and it's not. Barry needed to die, I feel, but I felt like it was very strange for Kusanov to kill Barry. I don't know, because he's all about getting justice for Janice, and then decides to kill Barry. And then we get the movie that was made, which the movie is very funny. I wish they got Mark Wahlberg and Daniel Day-Lewis to do it, but unfortunately, I guess, that could be pretty expensive. Um, it's just like, I don't know. To me, that was just such a letdown. I'm like, man, I don't know. I just was hoping good resolution to the conflict, and instead we just got another season 1 and 2 end, which was like a lie. You know what I mean? It was a
Yeah.
lie of like Ryan Matson being in charge of everything.
So I earlier I said that every character has an opportunity to fix their situation and they don't take it. We already explained what Barry's was. Sally's was she wants to work in the entertainment industry. She does a little bit and then she gets canceled or whatever. And then she gets an opportunity to be an acting coach for an actress in a superhero universe. And she doesn't take it because it's not what she wanted. And then Kusanov wants to preserve the memory of Janice, and get justice. And he's making steps. He's going the peaceful route. He's making steps to getting that done, cooperating with police, putting fame and fortune aside until, oh wait, I can make this movie, preserve Janice's memory in my own way by getting famous by working on a movie again. Okay, I'm going to do that. Hank, he wants to be a criminal overlord, and be really successful. He is he Cristobal presents a legitimate way to be very successful, and he's like, no, I want to be the Chechen boss, crime boss, right? So he kills Cristobal and tries to do it his own way. And so all of these people could have had good, fulfilling lives, but they wouldn't have gotten it by their own terms, and so they reject it, right? And I
Right.
think that the ending just kind of brings that to its natural conclusion, which is that nobody gets their satisfying ending.
True. I mean, we can agree to disagree.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know,
I was just
I
giving
still
my
really enjoy
two
the
and a half
show. I
cents.
really love it, but to me, it's like I'm gonna find myself really rewatching seasons 1 and 2, but probably not really bothering with a lot of seasons 3 and 4.
Yeah, and I can get that because it does turn into a different show. It really does.
Right. But
And whether or not that works for you is just going to depend from person to person.
right. Well, Cameron, do you have anything else?
A little bit.
All
Um,
right, we'll say
I
it.
have a general bad opinion, which is
Okay.
that I think that Barry, like Bill Hader has come out and said he knows this has happened, but Barry gets progressively stupider each season, and I think that is a bad thing. I don't like that. It makes him kind of by season 4 he's straight up a doofus.
Uh-huh.
And that I think is too much of a change in the wrong direction.
Right.
I He can be lying to himself and making bad decisions like he does in the first 2 seasons, but by the end, he does that and he's just flat out dumb. And I think that kind of takes away from some of the weight of it. I think that's a bad thing. Um, and I think I touched on this a little bit earlier. Hank's story does not conclude in a good way. I think the
Oh,
final image of him dying in like holding Cristobal's statue's hand, I think that's a cool looking shot. I I think it's too abrupt and it doesn't he doesn't deal with what he's done. I think. I don't think he's
Whose
good.
grenade kills Cristobal?
Cristobal was shot.
Okay, he was shot by who?
Or Hank, you mean? Hank was shot by
Yeah.
Fuchs.
Oh, okay. I need to watch that.
You do. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But those are my two things. I think Barry gets too dumb, and I think Hank didn't have a satisfying conclusion, but not
Mhm.
in like the way that everyone else didn't have satisfying conclusion. Um, we do see we do see Sally kind of learn. She rejects somebody. You know, she went from being
Mhm.
kind of a pushover to being
It looks like
uh
she's back.
she's yeah. So it's a weird ending, I will say.
Yeah.
Do you have
I
anything
don't
else to
know.
say? Any other opinions kind of like that?
Not really. Nah, not really. I don't know. It just seemed like it was a bit rushed towards the end. That's like it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still recommend the show. Like I still really love it. It's hilarious. It's so much fun.
I'm so excited to see what Bill Hader does in the future.
Yeah, well,
He
me too. I hope
wrote,
he,
directed, starred in this. Like he's done it all. So
yeah. I mean, I hope he continues to, if not make more shows, but like get involved with like helping create more shows. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, I don't know.
I
But
can see him being on the same level as the John Krasinski's and the Peel Jordan Peels.
Mr.
Where
Peel,
yeah, they
yeah.
started out as just like goofy guys, and then they become serious filmmakers.
Yeah. I hope it. I hope it. We also need a Tim Robinson horror movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Um
We just need to remake Barry, but Tim Robinson is Barry. Any
Speaking of serious filmmakers, Ben, we deleted our episode of Spider-Man, and you said that you were working on your own project talking about it.
Yeah. If you can take a look over here, which you can't. Uh, um, I did an impulse buy, bought that. Um, and I'm gonna try to make some quick movie reviews. I don't really know how the format's gonna go, but I'm wanting to make something to, especially with Spider-Verse, because it does deserve to be talked about. Uh, and it's unfortunate that our editors and producers really did drop the ball. Giraffe. Uh, but I do want to make something just to talk about, like to give it the praise because I know it's getting so much praise. So I'm not saying the praise it deserves because it's gotten all of it. But uh, I just want to say why I like it so much.
Yeah,
So, but that's all for me.
that's all for me.
Well, with that, you can click right here and get what did you think anized.
But